Alright, YouTube, today's Clinton campaign scandal highlight for actually yesterday. The new batch of emails, I have not combed through any of them or kept up tabs about them. I've been doing other work today. I got big announcement later, really good one literature-wise. It looks like the Clinton campaign, Podesta and so forth, were bandying around the possibility of creating a slew of fake Craigslist ads to denigrate Trump's support among women. With the job description of honey bunch and must be attractive and must lie about age and, you know, he'll grope you under the table sort of material. My first reaction is, of course, well, it's slimy. It's scandalous. It is a scandal, the fact that this was considered, apparently. But as far as being damaging enough to be like a campaign killer scandal, I don't think so, because Clinton's more hardened fans won't care. They're on board with her for life. Her soft supporters primarily appear to have jumped aboard her campaign largely out of the belief that Trump was a racist or a sexist or some permutation of bigotry. If that's the case, then something like this, while it casts a shadow over the Clinton camp, it doesn't necessarily equate to they'll jump aboard the Trump campaign. If anything, anyone who looks at this and says, well, that's the last straw, I'm not voting for Clinton, won't be a Trump voter, they'll be a third-party voter, or they'll stay home, or they'll vote for D's nuts, or something along those lines, or Vermin Supreme. That being said, it is damaging. The WikiLeaks scandals that we've seen thus far are not damaging on their own individually so much as a collective. It just gives the vision of the Clinton camp as being a generally lowbrow, slimy campaign predominantly interested in manipulating the media and the public rather than actually discussing issues. I would say so far the most damaging in totality on its own is really their talk about how they want to manipulate the media and or ignore the media when they get an actual question that isn't a softball fluffed up question specifically to make Hillary Clinton look good. That's because that sums up basically their interaction with the media and the public as a total. They do not see the public's concerns as valid. They do not see the public's concerns as being legitimate questions. They don't consider any actual independent media left that they haven't bought up their questions as necessarily important to address. And that shows a disinterested, a distant, and a non-transparent campaign, which is exactly the opposite of how Obama cast his 2008 campaign, and it was a winning message. It wasn't true, but it was a winning strategy. This precludes them from saying, oh, well, we're going to be a transparent administration, we care about the common man, and we believe in press freedom, because clearly none of those things are true if you actually check out the material on WikiLeaks. I see for now the first time, as we speak, people beginning to tune out the message that WikiLeaks is Russian agents. I see it echoed among her hardened supporters and her paid shills. I no longer see that being of particular concern with anybody that I'm aware of, as far as my circle of contacts go, online or in the real world. I don't know of anyone who takes the claim seriously that WikiLeaks is being controlled by the Kremlin. I think the message is beginning to fall flat as well, with the non-tech generations, maybe the older Gen Xers and the boomers, who are beginning to wonder if the Clinton campaign isn't simply disinterested in talking about its scandals for political reasons. Well, no shit. I would say yes, indeed they are. They don't want to talk about these things. That's why they've paid the media or threatened the media into compliance so that they won't ask those questions. But it is beginning to seep into the mainstream media, the legacy media. The cable TV and newsprint media is begrudgingly beginning to talk about it. USA Today, for instance, ran an article, I think yesterday, summing up the whole situation. They attempted to make the excuse that the real issue was that it showed Russian cyber intrusions and how they were trying to play havoc with our election. But in the context of the article, they also do mention the content of some of these leaks. They are mentioning the existence of WikiLeaks, which means that people potentially, if they're reading this online, this editorial, they're Googling the WikiLeaks leaks, and potentially they're seeing such massive systemic corruption that they begin to tune out the message. The mere fact that the legacy media is now addressing WikiLeaks, even if they're only doing it to attack the messenger and say, well, they're Russian agents or there's espionage here or something illegal, even if they're just addressing it and trying to cover for her, It's not as good as just ignoring it outright. It's clear they're trying to cover for her, but I don't think it's working anymore. I think it's beginning to lose its favor among the population. That's what I feel anyway. And I would say it's not good for the Clinton camp that the generally ranked as untrustworthy cable TV generation legacy media is either at least talking about it now or has become ineffective at covering for her, among younger voters especially. Clinton has to win handily among the millennial generation in order to win the election. Otherwise, she fails. And it's no longer looking like she's able to do that. Another reason why I maintain my prediction in a preliminary sense, as far as the trajectory of the race as it's going now, I believe Trump will win. And I say that as well because of this. Any of the following would destroy Hillary Clinton's campaign. Trump far exceeds his expectations at the third debate and crushes her, which is possible, although it'd be less than a 50% chance. O'Keefe really does have a Clinton racist rant tape, which, again, less than 50% chance that's the specific content, but there is a chance. WikiLeaks has something that's more damaging than the Podesta emails, and or has more damaging Podesta emails that will continue to get significantly worse towards the end of the campaign. That's number 3. Which, again, I would say less than 50-50 chance, but possible. Or some unforeseen health incident involving Clinton that's public, like when she collapsed and got tossed into the van. That would probably sink her campaign because it'd be a little bit too much evidence that there's something screwy going on. Again, the chances for that would be about the same. Now, on their own, these 4 scenarios are not individually as likely as not happening. But collectively, I would say there's certainly a well better than 50-50 chance that at least one of these things happens. We'll get to see probably on Monday or Tuesday, only a few days from now, is when O'Keefe would most likely drop his tape. Specifically because I can't imagine he'd wait until after the third presidential debate when all speculation will be literally about nothing but the results inevitably in November, among the legacy media. He would probably drop it on Monday, a couple days before the debate, just like the Trump tape was dropped a couple days before the second presidential debate for maximum effect, because then it gives Trump something to query at the debate itself, and I think that's probably the goal. Tuesday would be the other day that it could possibly drop, the day before. Monday would be, in my estimation, more effective in a political sense. Now, remember, O'Keefe is a partisan. He's a Republican, more or less. He's a conservative, sort of a teabag Republican. He does like Trump, unironically. He does detest Hillary Clinton. He's in this not for WikiLeaks reasons, as in transparency in general. He's in it for political gain. If he truly does want to cripple her campaign and be remembered as the person who did so, and get universal accolades among tens of millions of people, he has to time the release effectively. In his AMA, he appeared to actually say, yes, indeed, this tape is Clinton. It's not a Clinton confidant. It's not Huma Abedin or Chelsea Clinton. It's not Bubba Bill making racist jokes about cotton picking or something like that. It's Clinton herself. Which is now, because he's confirmed that, I'm going to assume that that's the case. As far as the content, he remains mysterious. That would be, in my estimation, the biggest likelihood of the soonest that the Clinton campaign could be crippled. However, if that doesn't happen, a couple days go by, you've got the third presidential debate, there's the second chance. If Trump really outperforms, if he really reams her, really makes her look dumb and corrupt, which, with all the WikiLeaks stuff he can talk about, it shouldn't be that hard, honestly, as long as he can maintain his coherence. That would be the second likelihood. The third would be that we could see continued damage from these smaller WikiLeaks scandals and or more major scandals. And the fourth would be, of course, at any time between now and voting, Clinton could have a public health meltdown. It is possible. I would say the same about Trump, by the way. He could suddenly have a heart attack up on stage. These people are both relatively old. In all likelihood, if they got into a second term, they wouldn't even survive their second term. You look at the average lifespan of presidents, most of them throughout our history have had heart attacks and strokes at relatively young ages. That's for a reason. The stress of the job gets to them. I wouldn't hold out much hope for either of them finishing out a second term without whoever their VP is at the time taking the reins of power because they die in office, they have a stroke, they have a heart attack, or something along those lines. This is the case regardless of whether it's Trump or Clinton, by the way. I know Trump likes to jog around up on stage and look imposing, but he is still an old man. That is the case. Clinton, she's an old woman. She obviously already has some health issues. Even if you consider them relatively minor, they are there. So you've got potentially a problem, potentially a crisis down the road, regardless of who wins. It could happen in their first term. Clinton or Trump could get elected 6 months later, they have a massive stroke and they end up half paralyzed. It could happen. As far as the Clinton campaign goes, though, the highlight of yesterday's scandals, I know there were other releases too, really was the fake Craigslist ad thing, which makes her campaign look slimy without killing her campaign off. But it just adds to the preponderance of evidence. What's happening is that with smaller scandals mounting up, there are an increasing number of reasons why somebody would choose not to support her campaign. With Trump, it's he's sexist or he's racist. And that's really all you have. Nothing else predominantly has stuck to him. The failed businessman venture didn't work. The he's a shady businessman thing didn't work. He's bigoted in a general sense didn't work. It's really about race or sexism. Those have stuck more than everything else. With Clinton, it's basically everything under the sun, and then some. It's the moon on the stick. It's everything except the kitchen sink and maybe the kitchen sink too, and it's increasing over time. That's beginning to sap the life force of her campaign. You can see it happening. For a very brief 2 or 3 day period after the Trump tape dropped, she was very optimistic looking. Her fans seemed very optimistic. I'm beginning to question whether they still are, based on some of this material. It's important to mention that the Craigslist ad was not spoken of by Clinton herself. It was her staff, but it makes it look like perhaps while Trump is the drunken frat boy, the drunken sorority people on the other side are the ones primarily handling Clinton's campaign. It doesn't help that there's now speculation that at least several of the people coming forward to say Trump like groped them or something along those lines are actually working for the Clinton Foundation. It's not helpful to that general line within the legacy media. And you can see they're beginning to back off the story altogether. They haven't been posting quite as much about it in the last 24 hours now, have they? I think they realize that the New York Times hit piece probably wasn't quite as accurate as it was portrayed. That's about all. Peace out.